Okay, Shalom Akim, Kahalayim La Yahaba Hashem Yahshaba Hashem Rahakudash, and double on Instagrams and apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Thali Al Thali Yahshua for the strength and order to make this video. And Yaratazar, you find this video edifying and exhorting. Edifying meaning to build up, exhorting meaning to encourage. So Yaratazar, read this is like a pre wrap up video, because I've been doing this for quite a while now. So I just wanted to do the final. Well, Yatas, I'll do 44, and then if the time is good, then I may read 45. But most likely, I'll probably just read 44 in terms of Genesis 44. Again, this is the part 8 to the series of Joseph was an example of true conviction, or Joseph was an example of conviction, which is a firmly held belief. Considering the fact that, of course, I did mention this in the first few parts, but just to reiterate the point, because of the fact of how his brothers treated him in terms of selling him to the Midianites, which are again a form of Ishmaelites, I believe, also. So and then they sold him to the Egyptians, but of course the Most High still had favor on him, despite him also going through Potiphar's wife, falsely accusing him. So that in itself was also a tester, as well as a show of his conviction as well. His firmly held belief in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. So, that's really the thing that we ought to learn from Joseph, man. So, anyways, I'm just get into it. If need be, I may get another precept, but the point really is in the chapter. So that's what I'm going to get through. So this is Genesis 44, verse 1. I'm going to read the whole thing. So Genesis 44 and verse 1, and he commanded, of course, again, so I ain't interrupted, man, but yeah, nevertheless, that's why we always say Yaharatazah. But yeah, let's go. So Genesis 41 and verse 1, and he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry. So, this was after, in Genesis 43, after, they went to, after Joseph held Simeon in one of the cages. Hold on. He held him back because Joseph then commanded his other brothers, when they didn't know that it was Joseph, by the way. He hasn't revealed himself yet. He said, go and get Benjamin, bring him back. And of course, he's filling up their pockets for them to, because obviously this was during the time of famine. He's filling them up with food, and of course with some coins as well, to be on their journey. So anyways, let's continue. Genesis 44 and verse 1, and he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his own sacks, in his sack's mouth, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. It says, and he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses, their donkeys. And when they were gone out of the city, and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, up, follow after the men. And when thou dost overtake them, say unto them, wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? So this was pretty much a setup from Joseph, man. Because he remember in verse 2, he said, all right, put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. So of course that was a setup to make it look as though, the young one has stolen something. But of course, again, there was an intention behind this, especially when we read further. Now it says, and when they were gone out of the city and yet afar off, Joseph said unto his steward, up, follow after the men, and when thou dost overtake them, say unto them, wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing. And he overtook them, and he spake unto them the same words And they said unto him, Wherefore saith my Lord these words? The Most High forbid that thy servants should do according to this thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sacks' mouths we brought again unto thee out of the land of Canaan. And how should we steal out of the Lord's house, thy Lord's house, silver or gold? So, the brothers of Joseph were saying, why in the world would we steal gold again when we just returned unto you, your riches, So, of course, again, reading Genesis 43, you understand that. But yeah, that was the point there. It's like, what point is that? You're looking for a part 2 now? So anyways, verse 9, it says, With whomsoever of thy servants it be found, both let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondsmen. And he said, Now also let it be according unto your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and ye shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack, because his brothers were probably thinking, yeah man, all right, we're gonna prove to you that we're innocent, but not knowing Joseph pretty much set them up. Again, there was an intention here. There was a grand plan. That says, Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched and began at the eldest and left at the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack, which was the youngest. Now it says, Then they rent their clothes. That must have been infuriating. Because, let me read this out first. It says, Then they rent their clothes and laded every man his ass, and returned to the city. So when it says they rent their clothes, means they rip their clothes, man. Typically people of the ancient way did that. When typically either you're mourning, but so of course with a mixture of anger as well. But in this case, I believe it was anger, because the brothers were probably tripping, man. Like, have we been set up here? You don't want to do a part 2, because again, they can't return unto Jacob, again Israel, because that's what his name changed to. They can't return unto Israel, their father, unless they have Benjamin with them. So this would have been a fearful case, man, for them. Now, all right, verse 14, Genesis 44 and 14. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? It says, And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? The Most High hath found out iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. Let me just get to that word divine, because that's came up quite a bit there. Just to get some understanding as we read this. But, as the servant said, again it was a setup, but as the servant of Joseph said, you rewarded evil for good. Considering this, they stole, supposedly, stole, which was again a setup. They stole Joseph's silver cup, as we read in verse 2 of Genesis 44. Alright, so let me get this verse. Get the root word of divine. Because I believe it should be different in terms because of the context. So this is the root word of divine.
Strong's H 5172. Nachash. Nachash.
So yeah, Nachash, as it sounds there, or Nachesh as it says there. But it says in the outline of biblical uses, to practice divination, divine, observe signs, learn by experience, diligently observe, which I believe that's the context here. Let's see what it says here. So divine yeah, diligently observe, man. So that's really what it means in this context. So then read it again. This is Genesis 44 and verse 15. And Joseph said unto them, what deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine, which means he could diligently observe, man. So he's quite attentive, essentially. That's what it meant there. Just to clarify that. So he's an attentive individual. That's what Joseph was. Now, verse 16, and Judah said, what shall we say unto my Lord? It says, what shall we speak, or how shall we clear ourselves? The Most High hath found out iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, the Most High forbid that I should do so. But the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for ye, get ye up in peace unto my father. Then Judah came near unto him, and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant. For thou art even as Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servants, saying, have ye a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. So they thought Joseph was dead, considering that they sold him off. They didn't even know. Verse 21, and thou said unto thy servants. They didn't know that they were speaking to Joseph, by the way, just to make that clear. Joseph was still in the covering. They didn't even recognize him, because remember, more than 14 years, I believe, would have passed anyways. Considering how long it's been from when they sold him to when they went through the 7 years of harvest, and of course they're currently in this context they were going through the 7 years of famine. All right, so it says, and thou said unto thy servant, says, bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. And he said unto my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. It's a serious case. And thou saidst unto thy servants, except your youngest brother come down with you, you shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came up unto thy servant my father, we told him the words of my Lord. So they told Israel, they told Jacob the words of Joseph. And our father said, go again and buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go down if our youngest brother be with us. Then will we go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. So of course Joseph wanted to see Benjamin. And thy servant my father said unto us, ye know that my wife bare me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. And I said, surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since. Of course, that was the darn lie that his brothers told his father a few chapters back from chapter 2, a few chapters up before. I believe it could have been Genesis 37, before Genesis 44. Where they told Jacob a lie that a beast has torn him up, man. Flipping, framing their father, but this is part of the story, innit? Anyways, the Most High does what he will. Alright, let's see. Alright, hold on. Alright, verse 28. So Genesis 44 and verse 28. And the one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn in pieces. and I saw him not since. And if ye take him also from me, and mischief befall him, ye shall bring down my grey hairs and sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant, my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life. And again, lad referring to a little boy. Again, hence the word yalad in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, which means boy. A young boy. Now it says, and it shall come to pass when he seeth the lad is not with us, that he will die. So Jacob, again Israel, he really, what's the word? He really had what's the word, man? He really had care. He had a lot of care, respect for his younger son at the time. Of course, because considering Joseph had he thought that he died, but of course it's like now, okay, he better look after Benjamin, man, because he don't want the same fate to then befall Benjamin. So verse 31. Verse 32 says, for thy servants became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, if I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad. So Judah was saying, please, let me be the servant. Let me stay here, and then let Benjamin go. Now it says, now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad, a bondman to my lord, and let the lad go, and with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me? Lest peradventure, which means like, what if I see the evil that shall come on my father? So, that was the fear that befell them, man. The brothers of Joseph. That's why they're like, no, we can't leave Joseph again. We can't leave Benjamin, with Joseph again, man. Considering how much care and focus, Israel, aka Jacob, had on Benjamin, because he didn't want to lose Benjamin as he lost Joseph. So it's understandable there. It's understandable. Let me see if I can get precept here. This was like a reading, nevertheless, man. So let's see how I can get something. Because it's all about that conviction, that deep belief, man. Right now in Genesis 44, they still don't know they're talking to their brother. They're thinking that Joseph is long gone. Joseph is looking you lot in the eye, and you don't even realize who he is. Because he transformed. He was like second in command of whole of Egypt. Again, previous chapters explain this. All right, let's see. Let's see. Alright, you know what? Let me get this. Alright, I'm gonna read from verse 3. So this is Proverbs 24 and verse 3. It says, through wisdom is an house builded, and by understanding it is established. And of course, through the wisdom Yahweh Shem Yahshua had imparted, on Joseph, upon Joseph, of course. That's why Potiphar favored him for a season, until he was deceived by his own wife, making a false accusation. But nevertheless, Most High increased him even more after that, being the second in command, man. Of course, he then gave the wisdom to, all right, use the 7 years of harvest to gather everything you got to gather in the storehouses. Then, so that you can use that for the 7 years of famine. Now, verse 4, it says, Proverbs 24:4 says, and by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches, which again, food is also part of riches as well. Now it says, a wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increaseth strength. You see? Let me read that in the NLT as well. So the New Living Translation, Proverbs 24, verse 3 to verse 5. A house is built by wisdom and becomes strong through good sense. Through knowledge, its rooms are filled with all sorts of precious riches and valuables. The wise are mightier than the strong, and those with knowledge grow stronger and stronger. See, that's why the scriptures say, blessed is he that readeth. Blessed is he. Hold on. Alright, so this is Revelation 1 and 3. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. And of course, it's not just reading it, but it's also to have the understanding of it, as we mentioned in Proverbs 24. That is key right there, man. Wisdom and knowledge, because you could have the knowledge, but the wisdom really comes when you know how to apply it. So Yaratazar, you found it edifying. The last part, which is part 9, I'm going to read Genesis 45, which is when Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. So again, I just wanted to finish it, wrap up the series, quite good, so that, everything's completed well. But Yaratazar, you found it edifying and exhorting. Kahalayim La Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Bashim Rahakodash, and double honors to the great Muslim apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Thalia Shai once more for the strength to make this video. Shalom, shalom.